Beneath an ancient Mediterranean city, archaeologists exposed one carefully buried dog. Then another appeared beside it, and another beneath the surrounding earth. Eventually, the reported total climbed beyond 1,000 individual dog burials. These were not loose bones swept into a rubbish pit. Many animals lay alone in shallow graves, deliberately placed on their sides. Their legs were flexed, and their tails often curved near the hind limbs. Yet no inscribed marker identified them, and no offerings accompanied them. The graves overlapped, suggesting that earlier burial places were sometimes forgotten. Puppies made up most of the population, alongside older dogs of both sexes. The cemetery label sounds simple, but even that word is debated. Were these treasured animals, ordinary city dogs, or participants in something sacred? The bones preserve deliberate treatment, without preserving the reason behind it. The setting makes the discovery even stranger. This was ancient Ashkelon. Its ruins stand on the southern Levantine coast, beside the Mediterranean Sea. For millennia, Ashkelon connected inland routes with ships crossing the wider region. Its harbor and markets made commerce central to the city's identity. Imported pottery and other goods reveal connections stretching across the Mediterranean. The dog burials belong mainly to the 5th century BCE, under Achaemenid rule. After Persian power reached the coast, Ashkelon again became a flourishing port. Phoenician communities and traders were prominent in the city during this period. That cultural setting matters, because later interpretations look toward Phoenician religion. Still, a Phoenician presence does not automatically make every burial Phoenician ritual. Ashkelon was cosmopolitan, commercial, and repeatedly rebuilt by different communities. Any explanation must fit both the graves and this complicated urban landscape. The Leon Levy expedition began systematic excavation at Ashkelon in 1985. Dog burials emerged in coastal excavation grids, especially grids 50 and 57. Many lay in fills above part of an earlier warehouse complex overlooking the sea. Additional, somewhat later burials appeared farther north in Grid 38. This is why published totals do not always match one another. The Israel Museum identifies 970 similar burials excavated between 1986 and 1992. Other reports count more than 1,200 remains, or summarize roughly 1,400 burials. Those figures reflect different seasons, grids, and ways of counting partial remains. Coastal erosion also destroyed the western edge before its full extent was known. So, the original number may have been larger but cannot now be established. What excavators could see was repeated, individual burial carried out over time. Who kept returning to bury these dogs, and what obligation were they fulfilling? The physical evidence narrows the possibilities, though it does not select one answer. Most dogs occupied individual, shallow pits rather than one mass grave. They had no consistent compass orientation and no uniform arrangement across the site. Some graves intruded into older ones, reinforcing the absence of durable markers. No ordinary grave goods or food offerings were placed beside the bodies. Even so, the intact positions show that carcasses were handled with noticeable care. Many were only weeks old and came from different litters. Adults and subadults were present too, creating an age profile dominated by puppies. The animals were medium-sized, roughly comparable to local pariah-type dogs. They were not a standardized breed created through obvious selective breeding. A few older animals showed healed injuries, worn teeth, or other pathologies. Bones can record damage, but many causes of death leave no skeletal signature. That limitation is essential when asking whether the dogs were sacrificed. Intentional burial is clear, intentional killing is not. researchers found no general pattern of fatal blows on the skeletons. They also found no butchery or skinning marks across the burial population. Around 5% of examined older dogs showed injuries or healed disorders. None provided a widespread lethal trauma pattern explaining the cemetery. This is the major evidence reveal. Burial does not equal sacrifice. Poisoning, drowning, suffocation, or strangulation could leave little trace on bone. Therefore, those possibilities cannot be excluded solely by skeletal analysis. They also cannot be claimed without independent evidence. The gradual accumulation of burials argues against one sudden, catastrophic killing event. Sacrifice remains possible in theory, but it has not been demonstrated archaeologically. Could this simply have been a cemetery for beloved pets? Careful placement may feel affectionate to modern viewers, but emotion is hard to excavate. The huge number of puppies, including extremely young animals, weakens a simple pet explanation. There were no names, personal objects, or household markers linking dogs to owners. Another interpretation sees them as Ashkelon's ordinary, semi-managed urban dog population. High puppy mortality would be expected before modern vaccination and veterinary care. That explains many deaths, but not automatically the repeated burial custom. Why collect so many carcasses and place each one intact beneath busy urban ground? A trade hypothesis proposes that dogs were bred or held near the port. It is imaginative, yet direct evidence for an Ashkelon dog export industry is lacking. The uniform respect shown at burial still points toward a shared social rule. One leading interpretation searches for that rule in healing and religion. Across parts of the ancient Near East, dogs could be associated with healing deities. That wider tradition makes Ashkelon's Phoenician setting especially relevant. At Kition in Cyprus, a Phoenician temple account lists dogs and puppies among personnel. The text is connected with the temples of Astarte and a deity called Mukol. Related inscriptions combine Mukol with Reshef, a god linked to plague and healing. Because Kition and Ashkelon shared Phoenician connections, scholars noticed a possible parallel. One interpretation proposes that Ashkelon's dogs served a local healing cult. They may have been valued in rites, then respectfully buried after natural deaths. Astarte has also been drawn into the theory through regional religious associations. However, no matching temple has been identified beside the Ashkelon burials. The Kition text does not describe Ashkelon's dogs or explain their graves. The comparison is suggestive historical context, not proof of a healing cemetery. So, how do the main explanations rank when measured against the evidence? Natural deaths, followed by a repeated local burial custom, fit the skeletal record well. A healing cult connection is plausible because of cultural parallels, but remains unconfirmed. A straightforward pet cemetery explains care, yet struggles with scale and demographics. A managed city dog population explains puppy mortality, not the burial rule by itself. Commercial breeding or export is possible, though currently supported mostly by circumstance. A lethal epidemic is weaker because the burials accumulated gradually across many years. Systematic sacrifice is also weak without consistent evidence of killing or ritual equipment. No grave offerings, altar, mass death layer, or confirmed cult building settles the issue. Even the word cemetery may mislead if no sacred ground was permanently reserved. Researchers noted that dogs were buried where space became available. The strongest conclusion is not a theory, but the pattern everyone must explain. Hundreds upon hundreds of dogs received deliberate, individual treatment after death. Most were puppies. Others lived long enough to carry healed injuries and worn teeth. They were buried over decades, not dumped together after one disaster. Their bones show no broad pattern of butchery or fatal trauma. Their graves carried no markers, written explanations or ordinary offerings. Ashkelon's port, Phoenician community, and regional healing traditions create meaningful context. Yet context is not confirmation, and similarity is not identity. The people responsible left a repeated action, but no surviving explanation. Perhaps burial itself was the obligation. Practical, sacred, compassionate, or all three. For now, the exact reason remains one of Ashkelon's most compelling unresolved questions. For more ancient, strange, true stories, subscribe to Ego Files. What do you think best explains why these dogs were buried so carefully?